monthly recurring revenue was around 12 to 14K a month. And this month we're going to hit 76.
EFT through TKC is definitely well over my mortgage.
I want to kind of be there for our kids. I want to have some family time. And that's where kind of like doing the hybrid approach and doing more online coaching kind of comes in.
When I want to go home and be present with my kids, I can make that happen.
Welcome to another episode of the Business Coaching Workshop. I am your host, Andrew Jackson, strength and nutrition coach at BarbellLogic Online Coaching, and the founder and product owner of TurnKey Coach, which this podcast is brought to you by and powered by TurnKey Coach. We are here to answer the two most common questions that I get talking to coaches, which is how do we get more clients and how much should we charge? But we also talk about different fulfillment strategies and, of course, occasionally how TurnKey Coach can help you deliver your service and keep your clients longer. And today we've got a very special guest with us. We had him on the show before. Welcome back, Karl Schudt, our AI guru and assistant coach champion. Very excited to have Karl on the show today because we've done 2, maybe 3 episodes at this point about what we're working on with the assistant coach, what's coming, how our beta test users are using it. But as of this month in July, it is now fully available in production to our to anyone that wants to use it. Every tier has credits available. It's a pretty simple system. You don't have to keep track of tokens. It's really intended to be as intuitive and possible that every output essentially you get from the assistant coach is 1 credit. And so if you give it 10 jobs, you're going to use 10 credits. And, each tier has a good number of credits to be able to at least get a feel for what it can do, and, get some value out of it. And then of course we set it at a level where hopefully when you start getting legitimate amount of usage out of it, you might want to bump up to the next tier, very similar to how the frontier models are working. But all that aside, I wanted to have Karl back on because even in my experience, having used it over the last several months, there are ways to get more value out of the assistant coach. And Karl, you are intimately familiar with not just having built the features and using it yourself, but I think you more than probably anybody that I've talked to have really dug into understanding how the LLMs work at a kind of foundational level. And from what I've seen, you kind of know how to sweet talk the LLM to get it to do what you want. Whereas I see other people will interact with it in a way that you don't quite get what you want. And in some cases, it might even feel like you're having to do more work because not only are you having to think through how to prompt this assistant coach, but then you have to clean up all the work, clean up the output because it doesn't quite meet the mark. So in theory, the assistant coach is exactly what the name implies. It's another coach that you can talk to that has expertise that you can give all kinds of context, and it'll go do work for you, and ideally eliminate as much of, if not all of the administrative work. But that takes a little bit of skill, and I think there are lessons learned that you have and tips and tricks. Mm-hmm. And so I really want to open up the conversation to give you a chance to share kind of what mental models people can use when they're interacting with the assistant coach, maybe some tactical, things that you do on a day-to-day basis. Like how do you get the most value out of the assistant coach? Because you might be one of the most frequent or power users, we'll call it. Mm-hmm. And then obviously Q&A for anybody here who's tried using it or has questions about how to get the most out of it.
Yeah. Well, let's back up a little bit. So like you say, assistant coach is another coach. The whole point of it is to enable the actual human coach to be a better coach and to do some of the things that you might not want to do. And so I think engineering arises out of profound laziness in a certain kind of person.
Absolutely.
It's the certain kind of person who is going to be frustrated at having to do something over and over and is going to automate it. And then, 3 months later, you have like a new programming language or something, which doesn't look like laziness, but it really was. I do not
These are interesting
like
people, by the way. I think that, and I totally agree, and I relate to that so much, that simultaneously they're very high agency people, but so it's laziness to a particular type of task.
Yeah.
Like if you, like you said, if you find yourself doing this task repetitively, it's like you'll go to the ends of the universe to stop doing that thing.
right.
So
Right.
it's like lazy about that one thing, and yet extraordinarily like motivated to do an insane amount of work to eliminate this little, nuisance of a task.
Yeah. So let me give an analogy, because that's what I want assistant coach to do, is enable you, coaches, to do more and to do less of the grunt work. I want you to be able to think at a higher level of abstraction, to think rather than thinking sets and reps, but to be able to think in mesocycles or like yearly cycles or even more. So the reason I got started into this, my origin story, was like many of you, I'm worried that AI is going to kill us all. Well, in the meantime, I wanted to learn what it was. And so I started studying it, and it might still kill us all, but it's very, very neat. Mathematically, it's very neat. And so I started to play around, and I think it was one of these. I think it was Gemini that I was playing with. And I took a client spreadsheet, because you can download just the bare workout data from the dashboard of our wonderful app. And it's just sets and reps and weights and dates. And I fed it to Gemini, and I said, well, tell me about this client. And it said, well, it didn't really call me a fool, but it's as if it said, you fool, you've been grinding him to dust. He hasn't had a PR since, February. And I looked at it and I thought, that's right. And so this was a moment where I became convinced that this could help me be a better coach, because I was focused on getting the next week's workouts in for that client. And I was not thinking in the big picture. It wasn't being presented to me in a way that was easily digestible. You have to go back and look at all the workouts, and you have to keep in mind, well, what's been the running weights, and is this above or below, and like what trends are happening. And so that made me think we could do this better. And so I started working with the API for TurnKey Coach, and then we built it into the app. The whole idea is so you can do a similar thing. You've got a client, you want to have the big picture, so that you can use your coaching expertise. Your coaching expertise is how to get that client to do the thing and to thrive. Your coaching expertise is not clicking a box in an app. I hate clicking boxes in apps. The app's very good. It's probably a me problem, but that's not what you got into coaching for. You got into coaching to change people's lives for the better. And so as much of that stuff as we can not take away, you can still do it if you want, but make it so that you don't have to do it. And give me one more analogy. So I used to have a book by Albert Einstein. I was a nerd. It's on special relativity. I think I didn't understand any of it, but the thing about Einstein, all of that stuff that you struggled through in high school math is automatic for him. And so he was able to think in bigger categories and then come up with relativity. Well, assistant coach kind of helps you do that. It helps you think in bigger categories of the lifetime of the client, of, summer training, so you can think in bigger categories and make bigger decisions rather than how do I get him a workout for Friday? So that's the point of it. It's not to replace you. It's to make it better for you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So moving down one level from conceptual to practical, and then we'll go to tactical towards the end. So practically, what's something that you did this week using Assistant Coach that solved that conceptual problem?
I reworked. It's actually that same client. I reworked his program. He's very busy. Trains in a really hot climate. He's getting ground down. And I said, well, we need to rework the program. So I had a conversation with Assistant Coach, and these are the constraints. Here's his equipment. Let's talk through a kind of a program. And it would give me proposals, and then I would respond to them. And then we iterated on it. I say we, I mean, as if it's another person, but it's just person shaped, you know? But it and I iterate. And I think we came up with a pretty good program, much quicker than it would have been me just writing something out on paper, because it would push back. You want these things to push back, which leads to some tactics that you can do. So if you know how an LLM
I want
works,
to double click on that one thing. One thing you said there that I have personally experienced, not just with the Assistant Coach, but just working with AI in general, that I think is the differentiator between quality and slop. The AI slop is the buzzword right now.
mm-hmm.
And often why people have a bad experience with AI is that if you sit down to work with an agent and expect it to work like a Google search or some other deterministic computer like code, or not computer like, but traditional software, where you expect to be able to type something in and get an expected output that is the answer, like the answer in the back of the book, you will either generate slop or have a bad time with AI. But if you think about it as a tool that helps you think, and that you are iterating with an editing eye, where you read all the output, you think about all the output, and you push back and it pushes back, and you have this kind of back and forth interaction with it, where your output is evolving towards something that you can then actually use, or maybe you put the final polish on it. Then you're going to generate high quality output significantly faster than if you were to try to sit down and do it yourself.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. If you think about what these things do, well, someone said to me, it's like a batting cage, but this is a good way to use it. So you're not facing live pitching. There's not a game on the line. You're standing in there trying to hit a fastball. What you don't want it to just lob it into. You want it to be, a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. See if you can even touch it. And the difficulty is what makes the whole goal is for you to do the thing. And so we want, I think it is a cheat code in these prompts to make it adversarial. In other words, tell me where I'm wrong. Try that. We might actually end up building it in. We're on version 1.0 right now. Maybe 1.1 will do this, but I will say, tell me the red flags.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way you think about how an LLM works, I don't want to get too much in the weeds. It is a bunch of linear algebra, and it's attempting to generate the next token. A token is kind of a proxy for a word. You can just think, generate the next word. The next most likely word. So it's like the autocomplete on Google or on your iPhone. If you type, "Are we getting?" and it says a stimulus check, that's trying to figure out the next most likely thing. It isn't a human. It doesn't think like we do. It's trying to minimize loss functions and get you, like for example, the reason if you train it on Wikipedia, it ends up being able to translate French. It's because that's the most economical way for it to get the next token. Nobody taught it French. It just learned it from doing loss function analysis. And so if you give it something like the top 3 reasons why this program stinks are, it will then fill in the 3 reasons. And then you can look at them and say, well, these aren't really reasons. It's still a pretty good program. But so you're giving it the prompt to find out what's wrong with what you're doing.
So instead of what are the top 3 things?
Yeah, like,
Like, are you saying
yeah, just
framing it at,
assume there's a problem. Tell it
mm,
to find the problem,
mm,
and it'll be much better at finding the problem.
interesting.
Because otherwise, it's just trying to complete the next token and whatever its reward function is. Like I get the sense that some of these, what's the reward function? You get ice cream at the end of the soccer game. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a human reward function.
And those are
They,
the weights that
yeah, like
uh,
if you play with Grok or Chat GPT or something, it always ends with a question to try to get you to keep going.
yeah.
Um, it's like they get a reward from you using more tokens, which they do actually.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm
So-
absolutely sure that's true.
Just tell it, no, tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Mhm.
I will say, and this is a big one too, which we might actually build in to version 1.1, is it's not a human actually doing reasoning. Okay. It is a human shaped thing that produces stuff that looks like reasoning. Okay. It's fascinating. It's a wonderful tool. It's one of the greatest things ever invented, I think. But if you tell it to explain itself, its reasoning quality gets better. If you just say, give me a program for next week, it'll come up with something. If you say, give me a program and explain your thinking, because it has to write it down, it has to draw the inferences.
Mhm.
It'll be much better when you make it tell you why it did it.
One of the things I've noticed that goes kind of back to that editing point, or what editing might look like, that I also see as a behavior difference between that deterministic expectation versus kind of a non-deterministic function. That if the LLM gets something quote unquote wrong, or it guesses something that you would disagree with, the answer isn't to throw your hands up and say, well, the LLM doesn't know what it's talking about. It's to give it better context.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it will often, and what I find is interesting that makes it a little bit more like working with a real human, is that often the quote unquote wrong output will be because there's some piece of context that you're including in your decision making process that is not visible to the agent. So it'll say, well, this is what's terrible about this program, and you'll be like, well, yeah, but they've got a right shoulder issue that has forced us to do this modification for the last 3 months, and that's why I'm not doing X, Y, or Z exercise that you're telling me is why it's a bad program. And it's, oh yeah, oh, of course, you're right. That's such a great point. Yeah, taking that into account, here's what I would do instead.
Yeah. So sometimes you have to point things out. So there's a famous paper by the Google engineers called "Attention is All You Need," which really led to the development of any of these chat agents, which is, and it's a little bit hard to understand the paper itself, but you don't just feed context to the thing. You have to feed context and attention. They're not human. They don't, like, they have trouble with pronouns. If you say, take that and do this, like, what do you mean?
Humans have problems with pronouns lately too.
Yeah, certainly. So you want to point it to the things that you want it to look at. Don't just, like, when I first started playing around with AI, because I used to be in academia, I have a ton of course notes, from Heidegger and Hegel and such. And I just fed it everything. I thought I would create Karl GPT by just feeding it all in my notes. And it doesn't quite work. You just feed it a bunch of text. It makes a really good search engine, but it doesn't generate great stuff from that. You want to feed it targeted stuff. You wanted to feed it specifics. And so I want to give a plug for what we've done with Assistant Coach. This is, in my opinion, much better than going to Gemini or Grok or whatever and feeding it a client spreadsheet. Because the very wonderful app that we have contains not just sets and reps. It contains commentary from you and from your client. Eventually, we might work video transcripts back in. We have to be careful about that. I was talking to Andrew earlier in the week and Divium that, yes, we can take a transcript of the video, but should you just feed it in? You know? So now the LLM's got, hey, how you doing? I noticed you. So how'd your vacation go? You know, it's got all of that. And so you have a lot of stuff polluting the context. So we're going to be careful about that, but we might be able to feed transcripts in. And you were mentioning the shoulder thing. So what I have taken to doing is, as I am doing a video review of my client, and video reviews are wonderful, but if I notice something, if I say, well, that was RPE 10, you know, your form severely degraded, I'll say note. I'll type it in. Like while I'm talking to the guy, I'll say note, and then I'll write that comment down. Now it's in the context.
You're talking about the note on the day of the calendar or the workout? Same
I
note
actually, no, I put it in the workout itself because that gets seen by assistant coach.
Okay.
And it gets seen by me too when I pull up the calendar. You know, it's visible to me and to the agent. So I think it's a win. I just type note, knees caved a lot on third rep of third set.
Okay.
Or client has, you know, I'll put the medical reports right in the workouts. And then as I'm generating programs, both I and assistant coach can see all of that.
Gotcha.
What are the red flags? Well, the client complained about, you know, sciatica last week and it's still unresolved. Perhaps we ought to hold off on the hip hinges or whatever, you know, so, but it knows everything. So we built this app. I wasn't there at the beginning of the building of it, but we built this app and it's got data structures in Rails. I hate Rails. Ruby is opaque to me, but there's all sorts of cool stuff going on in Ruby on the back end. It's got all of this stuff stored for your clients. And data is gold. Data is like the new oil. Okay. And we got a ton of data. We have perfect ways to capture client data. Andrew, the rate that he's developing things, we're just going to keep adding more stuff. Who knows, maybe eventually velocity data. Well, you can already do velocity programming.
Yes. That's actually, I'm collecting data right now with, I finally got my rep one fixed. So I'm recording on my workouts rep one data with a green fridge magnet on the end of my barbell and a QR code in the same plane as the magnet. So I'm creating data set training basically for the software to be able to know the size of an object. The QR code is the standard essentially, and then be able to match that to actual rep one measured data.
Right. And so we're going to, he's developing faster than I am. It's like, can assistant coach do that? Not yet. Give me some time, but we'll get it there.
I think your code quality is probably better than mine if I were to guess though. Anyways.
Is it a contest?
Yeah.
Yeah. So data is oil, but it needs to be refined. Okay. So we're pulling all of this data out of the ground. We need to make it usable. Well, it can be too much, you know? So with coaches on the call, now you have a huge binder full of, you know, thousands and thousands of data points on your client. That's great. What do I do with it?
Yeah.
And so by building assistant coach into the data structures that we already have, we can use what it's good at, which is seeing a lot of things that you don't see and helping you recognize the trends. So this month, it's everybody's got freebies this month. You can turn it on and play with it. Pull up assistant coach on a client's page and just say, tell me about this client. And it'll look through 90 days of history because that's what we feed it. And it will tell you things. And just do a back and forth and ask it more questions. And see if it helps you notice things that you hadn't noticed. I think you'll be like me. Well, maybe you're a better coach than I am, but you'll be like me with client one that I fed all those months ago. It seems like years, but just months ago. and be shocked to find out I was screwing up. And hopefully I'm serving him better now. Another thing that you can do is it is somewhat self-documenting. So we have built into the code so that assistant coach knows what it can do for the most part. So you can just go in there and say, hey, assistant coach, what can you do? Well, I can do this, that, and the other thing. Well, tell me about the other thing. And it should be able to tell you how to do it. And for the most part, it'll work. As Andrew was saying, it is a little difficult. It's not, I started programming in 1978 in Apple Basic. And if you told Apple Basic to do something, it would do it every time. LLMs do not respond the same way every time. So it's a little bit like whack-a-mole trying to tighten everything up.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it does what we want.
That's the thing that differentiates a bit for me in terms of how I think about using it, because I find it difficult to use in my day-to-day tactical workflow of doing a feedback video, modifying the workout, making small tweaks. Like the incremental stuff is very difficult to do with an agent unless you build really good tooling for it to use, where it's not actually calculating the changes or creating the deterministic output. If you give it a tool that generates deterministic output, it can do better at that. But where I find that non-deterministic output actually valuable is where I need often inspiration for creativity, or I need something outside the box that it picks, because my brain is actually generally more deterministic, because not because I'm a computer in my brain, but because I have certain strategies that I just go back to naturally. Having done this for over a decade, there's just certain exercises I'm going to pick almost every single time, where the agent might pick something that's a variation that I don't use as often, but it's just as good and it may solve the problem better or give the client something that it hasn't had in a while. So I like to use it when I hit a scenario where either my programming's gotten stale or their circumstances have changed, and I want to have that iterative conversation with something that kind of inspires me to shake things up a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's very good. I do that in my other stuff, personal writing. I really want the thing to yell at me. And so Grok and I have some epic fights, which is what I want, because it makes what I produce better. But the creative aspect of, we talked about this, I think the last time I was on the show, that there's a thought burden to using some of these more periodized programs. Like for example, I have found, I'm of the opinion now that for advanced trainees, I think Conjugate's pretty good. I think it scratches a few itches. It keeps them interested, and I've seen really good results, but it's such a pain in the butt to program. Because you have to keep track of exercise rotations and their equipment list, like can I have him do belt squats? Well, no, he doesn't have the equipment, so what you can do in Assistant Coach is you can add context to it. Okay, we built this in, so it's in the notes section. You can add a note. What I typically do is I will upload an equipment list. I'll say, hey, client Bob, what do you have? Sometimes I can make it up because I can see their gym, but I don't know that they have adjustable dumbbells or whatever. Tell me everything you've got. And I'll put that in a note and I'll make it available for Assistant Coach. You have to click that button and now it gets fed to the context the next time you talk to Assistant Coach on that client's calendar. It'll say, oh, I know that they have an incline bench. Okay. The other thing that you can do is add a little programming guide. Otherwise, you're dealing with general knowledge. So the LLMs are trained on pretty much the entire internet. Train mean they run a whole bunch of cycles to, well, you don't need to know all of that, but they're trained on like everything humans have written digitally and a lot that we wrote that anything that's been made digital. And so it's going to know about linear progression. It'll know about minimum effective dose. It'll know about anything that's out there. It'll know something about 531.
So this is something I wanted to ask you now, getting as close to tactical as possible. Like literally how can I make my prompt better? I posted about this in the TKC Slack.
Yeah.
I could even pull up the prompt, but it was probably something to the effect of build a 8-week conjugate program that cycles these exercises, and progressively overloads during that period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it came back with no exercise rotation, no set and rep variation, no even intensity variation.
Yeah.
It just gave me the same program for 8 weeks. And that really confused me. I don't know what was I doing something wrong, or did I not give it enough context? How do I prompt
try
better?
This next time. So try this next time. Use assistant coach to generate the prompt for assistant coach. Okay. So sit back and say, you and I were just talking. Your role is to write a prompt for future you to generate program. Okay. Here's what I want. Show me what you've come up with. And then you read it and say, well, tweak this. Make sure it explicitly mentions exercise variation. Okay. And then you could say, evaluate this. Did we do a good job? Okay. I know we would like it to be a little more self-contained, but we don't want AI slop, Right. We don't want to be the high school kid saying, generate a term paper for me. We want to make something good. Okay.
Steven, you've never used AI to generate a final, right? To take a final test? No, Steven. Steven's still finishing up school. Oh boy.
Well, I've been busy here and there, and maybe needed some help, time or two potentially, but for the most part, we're
if I end up teaching again at universities, I'm going to hand people paper and pencil.
Totally, yeah. I don't know why that is not the standard now. Like,
why is it? To get around.
I mean, that's the way it was even 30 years ago. I guess we just went away to computer. But do you think LLMs? You talked about beginning, and everybody's creating these doomsday scenarios of the AI Terminator. Do you think LLMs are just going to infinitely continue to improve, and to the point where you could just be like, write the term paper or like write my 6 months of programming, and it would just somehow figure it all out? Or do you think there's a limit to where this is all going to go, and that we're rapidly approaching that aspect?
Yeah, I think there's actually some limits. This is going to be big picture stuff. I think there's some limits. There are hardware limits. Everybody wants to build data centers now. Nobody wants them in their towns, but they're getting put there anyway. But there's a power law. If you double the amount of computer power, you don't get a double smart AI. You might get 10% smarter. So the curve is flattening out, as the number of parameters on these models keeps going up, but the smartness doesn't go up linearly with the number of parameters. And I've got the paper stored away somewhere on this. That made me cheerful. They're going to get really smart. They're not going to get godly smart. There is another limitation, which is you don't get meaning out of nowhere. The computers themselves don't understand anything. They're trained on human written stuff that has meaning embedded in it. Okay. It's just ones and zeros in the machine. It doesn't know what the color red is. It doesn't know what a squat is. It is trying to minimize loss functions based on humans writing about squats in the color red. Well, we have a limit of available training data. So there's a limit in two ends: how much computing power you can devote to it and how much data you can feed it. Which is, when I said data is the new oil, I think that's right. Like, they're having to create, sometimes this is into the weeds, but sometimes they'll randomize data just to make more training data because they don't have enough for these big models. So it's already pretty smart. Is it going to get godlike smart? You know, I don't think so. I don't think so. Which isn't to say there aren't going to be disruptions economically, but that's another topic.
Yeah. So last ultra tactical, as well as I want to open it up for any questions people might have. If some, how does a coach get started? Because I do think that first prompt, or there's even a little bit of setup required.
Yeah, it's a little intimidating. I get it.
Yeah. And if anybody is not clear on how to turn it on and get it set up, let me know. We can walk through that. You've got to go to your account page and you can enable it, and you can also set your credit limits so you don't overspend, and you can see what your usage is, all the good stuff. But go to the account page, turn it on, and then you've got to assign your clients to the assistant coach, which will show up in your team. But once you get it turned on and set up for a client, you can then click on the chat icon and it'll pop up an interface for you to be able to talk to the assistant coach, and that assistant coach can see the client calendar that you're on. What would you recommend to somebody who wants to try this out for the first time that they do?
I would recommend, first, don't be afraid. You're not going to break your client's programming. Well, unless you say delete all workouts. Don't say that. Okay. I would just have it do really simple stuff. I would say, hello. And it'll say, hello. And now you're going. Okay. Mm-hmm. I would say, tell me about this client. That's pretty easy. I would say, use it to create something that you would have done with the mouse. Mm-hmm. Create a squat workout, 3x5 RPE 8 with bench press 3x6 RPE 7, and put, just do that, something simple so that you can see it pop up on the calendar. Okay. You could say, move that workout, and it'll move. Replace the bench press with close grip bench. Just play with it. For this month, everybody gets to just play with it. You're not going to be charged overages this month. Is that correct?
It's set up to be charged overage, but it's full production.
Yeah. So,
right now. But everybody has a certain number of tokens, so you're not going to get charged just by testing it. No. Yeah.
So you should just go ahead and test it. And if I had the screen up for you right now, you would see when it creates workouts, they come in with a big U at the top of the workout. Mm-hmm. Okay. That means unpublished. By default, the workouts come in unpublished. That means that you can just play with it. You can say, create a 1 rep max everyday program for the next week. I want them to work out for a 1 rep max on every single lift, and see what it comes up with. Your client's not going to see it until you commit it. So you don't have to worry that you're accidentally going to, what would be the fear in playing with assistant coach? That you're going to screw up your client, or you're going to lose all your data. As long as you don't tell it, delete all the workouts, you're going to be safe, So, how do you learn about any new tech? How do you learn about your phone? You sit and you fiddle with it, see what it can do. You'll probably come up with things that I haven't thought of, that happened throughout the whole beta test. People would say, I tried to do this and it didn't work. And I'd say, well, that's a good thing. We should make it do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would work. I think, and then you can extend it. You could say, I do it with my test client. Carl's Testy McGee is my test client, and I just play with that. Right. Say, last week I did a call for our Slack channel, and I screwed it up. It very literally interpreted for me. I said, create a linear progression for 4 weeks. Don't worry about the weights. This is just a test. And it came in and it didn't progress the weights. Mm-hmm. Because I had told it not to worry about the weights. And so I deleted it all and I did it again without telling it not to worry about the weights, and it progressed them appropriately. So lesson learned. I also think it's, I was surprised at how much fun these things are.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, go ahead.
I think I really like how you started out with kind of the mindset approach to things, because my experience has been that this is so some of you are probably familiar with the traditional change management curve, where, in any process that you're changing, you're going to go through this initial period where things actually get worse before they get better. And this process in manufacturing, anytime we did a process improvement event, this valley was a 3 to 6 months process before we would actually see the efficiency gains. My experience with AI is, like many aspects of AI, more extreme. And there's just a YouTube video. I can't find it, but let me draw another one here. Come on now.
We can just click that Gemini button and say, "Draw me a line."
Why is it? Okay, here we go. So there's a YouTuber who's like an AI kind of cutting edge guy. His line looked more like this. And then things click, and it's just like more, it's basically the change management curve compressed. So like what Karl was describing there, when you're initially playing around, you're getting zero actual value from having it write one squat workout. In fact, your immediate thought will be, this would be just way faster if I just wrote the workout myself and then moved it. So you're going to go very quickly into this trough, this depth of despair here, where it just seems like a huge waste of time. But then it will click, and your output will be exponentially more using AI once you figure out how you work well with it, how you get the most value out of it. And I can tell you, this has been my personal experience across an extreme number of domains, whether it be writing actual code, helping me draft emails, helping me understand concepts that I do not have a clue about, and create presentations, you name it. But helping me think through problems and generate output that, if I were to have to physically type it all or physically write the code, would take me literally years to write, I'm now doing in hours, simultaneously, in parallel, with multiple different agents going on. So I think the assistant coach is just one version of that. And I think the mindset shift and kind of mentally preparing for some period of time where it maybe doesn't actually save you time, maybe it doesn't actually make the process better, maybe it requires a bunch of rework. But if you treat it as a learning opportunity, on which the other side, you're going to be infinitely more productive, or more thoughtful, or able to operate at a higher order. I think that's, to me, my biggest piece of recommendation is go in with an open mind to learn and play, and see what you get the most value out of.
Yeah, I think that's right. I just play with it and come up with something. It makes so many things possible,
right,
that would have had this barrier. Oh gosh, how do I do that? Well, no, now you can do it.
One other tactical thing that I've used that I found to be valuable is that a program can be a roadmap or tool of communicating a roadmap to your client, that previously I may have used a template to do a version of this, but I can now, if I'm working with somebody and they might throw something out like, I feel like need something different. I'm thinking about these different goals. I can now build an 8-week roadmap and say, hey, what do you think about this? And it takes me 20 seconds to build a prompt. The exact sets and reps and weights don't actually matter. It's just that it gives them something that helps them visualize what their training life might look like for the next 8 weeks. And then if they come back and they say, well, I don't really like this, or I don't really like that, I can be like, okay, great. Rewrite the 8-week program with those little tweaks. And I didn't waste that time. In the past, if somebody told me they wanted me to write an 8-week custom program, I would have wanted to stab my eyeballs out, especially if they then came back and said, well, can you change every other Thursday to be a pause? I would have get out of here. Like, this is crazy. But now with AI, I can share not just one variant, but 3 or 4, and it's absolutely no skin off my back, or whatever that saying is. It's no sweat to do that, 3, 4, 5,
Yeah.
6 times. And then it helps them buy into, okay, here's what I'm doing for the next 2 months.
Yeah. So we want to, I liked what you said. The goal here is not to just play with cool tech toys. The goal is to get the client to do the thing and have a good life, right?
Right.
And all of these tools make it easier for you. So you had described this back and forth with your client. Now the client's bought into a good program,
Right.
that you were not reluctant to make because you have these tools which make it easier for you to do. And so the end result is the client is being better coached.
And I've now saved myself probably hours of administrative work that I can then go back to my MED real-time programming as I'm doing my feedback and, okay, this is what happened this week. But then for next week, instead of having to copy, paste, tweak, it's there. And I can just modify the weight, modify the sets reps, modify the exercise incrementally, just as I would. And it saves me, cumulatively probably hours of time.
Yeah.
Any
I think
questions from the peanut gallery folks that are live, staying late? We've run over a bit of time. I appreciate everybody sticking around.
I think I got most of my questions answered on the Slack call the other day. So
yeah, thanks for showing up for that.
Yeah, 100%. I've still been messing around with it a little bit and finding things that'll work for what I'm trying to do. So
have you had any wins
with the assistant coach or just in general?
Yeah. Anything where you're like, ooh, that really saved me some time, or that helped me see something that I wasn't aware of?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like just so I do a lot of obviously like the group programming, whether it's for the family I'm coaching or all of the athletes. Mm-hmm. Some of them have been having a little bit of issues, so I can still fully program, through the group calendar, go to the personalized calendar, and the changes I need to make, I can put in the assistant coach, and it just does it for me. Like doing,
sweet.
if I need to change it to belt squat instead of box, safety bar box squat, something like that.
Yep.
Obviously they still have the replacement tool or like the find and replace tool.
Yep.
But using, typing it out to the assistant coach and saying why. So then it also saves the information, I think has helped.
Yeah.
But I do want to start using more of I think you mentioned it earlier, Karl, is like give me a report on this client.
Mm-hmm.
I think I need to start using that a little bit more. Because then it'll remind me to encourage my clients to comment when they're having more problems. Because I feel like recently I've and a lot of my stuff is still in person at this point in time, after my challenge ended. But like my mom, for instance, she'll just text me most of the time, and my mom just comment that, and then it's saved there, and I don't ever have to. I don't have to scroll back through the text messages and stuff like that.
Put it in the right surface.
So that's something I'm going to try to start using more.
On the side of things in works, I have a feature getting really close to being ready to test that will leverage AI to proactively provide you as the coach warning signs or customer experience kind of yellow and red flags that will help you, essentially will give the agent well-defined prompts to look for things that we know from our experience as humans are warning signs that a client is not doing well, might be churning. So it'll be basically proactively doing what you're talking about, that look at the program for you to, be that extra set of eyes to recognize if something isn't going well with the client.
That'll be really nice.
Yeah. I think that's kind of I think that's one of the things TurnKey Coach is going to do, where I'm going to spend more time and energy on. That right now, it's with the exception of a missed programming notification, birthday notification, the core relationship is kind of reactive. Yes, you post the workout, but then you're providing feedback in reaction or response to completed workout or a comment or a message. But I think there is a real opportunity to differentiate next to create tasks, essentially, which is what the Connect page is effectively, notifications, task-based notifications that create tasks for you to, or prompt you to do something that would be proactive. Because we now have all this data that we can leverage and coach experience that we have to be able to help you recognize something and take proactive action before they just quit or they get injured or they get stalled.
I do something similar for that. And you might, dear listener, you might have done something yourself with these integrations. Like I have like 4 email accounts, for 2 or 3 different businesses, and I can't keep track of it. And so I run OpenClaw at home, and I have an agent that scans my email and says, you better answer this one, gives me like 3 colors, the red that I have to deal with. And so this is going to be very good. And we have something similar when you pull up the Connect page and it says, well, client X says, you really need to deal with that client. You need to make a decision so that you can take your coaching ability and apply it in the highest value spots the soonest, so that your clients get better. And it's all about the client. Your client gets better service. So that's what we're aiming to do.
I was having a conversation with an onboarding coach yesterday where it was kind of interesting because she's just getting into the online coaching space. Her specialty is in catastrophic back injuries. And so she's coaching people on basic human movement that may have lost function, like entire ability to even move their legs or their arm. And so they're working on crawling, might be the exercise, or getting out of a car or something like that. And it's been so long since I was in that, since that we started doing this, but I could vividly remember what she was describing was this urge to give a list of every single thing that the client was doing wrong in the movement. And to have an expectation that if that client wasn't moving exactly to the way that the exercise is supposed to be performed, then that she's failing as the coach, and that the value of her service is to point out every single thing and get them to be moving perfectly, essentially immediately. And so, and I can remember like, okay, if I don't list out at least like half a dozen things in my response, then I'm not doing my job. And if they're not moving perfectly, then I'm failing as a coach. But there is, as we know, 10 years later, so much more to what you can provide value as a coach. Like you said, Karl, getting them to do the thing that helps improve the quality of their life, which can, that is so much more than just giving them cues on their squat or, tweaking their program by 5 pounds or 1 rep. Or picking the right program to get them a PR. Obviously, if somebody's a competitive powerlifter and they need to hit a PR for a meet, that's a big part of your job. But for most of the people that we're working with, being that person that can proactively recognize patterns or trends or problems and anticipate the client needs and communicate that in a way that they feel seen and heard, and then take the act, continue to take the action that improves their life, that's going to be way more valuable than knees out at 5 pounds.
Right.
All right. I think we've run out of steam here. We all have other things to do. Thank you for joining another episode of the Business of Coaching Workshop. I'm failing in my job right now because I'm supposed to have a call to action. Shoot. Here we go. Oh, nope, we don't have one. Okay, so I'm doing okay then. If you would like to know more about how to use the assistant coach, please schedule a call with me. Go to turnkey.coach/disco, and I will be more than happy to hear about your business and how we can help you either provide better service, retain your clients longer, or give you more hours in your day back so you can go do the things that you love. And join us next week on another episode of Business Coaching Workshop every Thursday at 11:30 Pacific time. Bye bye.